Picture this scenario, because I guarantee it has happened to you, or it is about to happen very soon. It is 10 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. You are sitting at your desk midway through a routine task when your boss calls you into their office. They have a smile on their face that is a bit too wide, a bit too rehearsed. You walk in and they hand you a heavy navy blue folder. Inside, in bold gold-embossed letters, it says, Senior Manager. This is it, the moment you have been working toward for years. Along with the title, they tell you the magic number, a $15,000 annual raise. In that exact microsecond, you feel an instant, overwhelming rush of dopamine flooding your entire nervous system. It is a chemical explosion of validation. You feel taller, smarter, and finally recognized by the machine. Your brain immediately starts a frantic, joyful calculation of all the things this extra money will buy. You walk back to your desk with a different stride, a sense of superiority that you can't quite hide. You immediately pick up the phone to call your partner, your voice trembling with a mix of excitement and relief. You tell them the news, and the first thing you do is book a table at the most expensive white tablecloth steakhouse in the city. That night, as you sit across from each other, you order the vintage wine and the prime-cut steak that you used to skip over on the menu. You raise your glass, the candlelight reflecting off the wine, and you toast to the new life. You tell yourself, I earned this. All the late nights, the missed dinners, the swallowed pride, it all finally paid off. You feel like you have finally cracked the code of the corporate ladder. You believe you are moving from the realm of the ordinary worker into the elite circle of the successful. You look at that folder on the table like it's a golden ticket to freedom. You are convinced that this extra $1,200 a month is the final piece of the puzzle that will solve your financial stress forever. You feel invincible, successful, and for the first time in a long time, you feel like you are winning the game. But you don't realize that the game has just changed its rules, and you are the only one who hasn't been notified. But here is the brutal reality that no one tells you at the promotion party. At the Exit Lab, we don't look at the gold-embossed letters on your new business cards, and we certainly don't care about the prestige of your new title. We look at the forensic data. We look at the cold, hard mathematics of your life. And when we run the numbers on that shiny new folder, we discover a terrifying truth. That folder isn't a reward for your hard work, and it isn't a gift from a grateful corporation. It is, in fact, a high-interest loan that you have just unknowingly signed, and you will be paying it back with the only currency that actually matters, your life energy. What if I told you that mathematically you didn't just get richer? What if I told you that by accepting that $15,000 raise, you actually just signed a long-term lease on a much bigger, much more expensive, and much more inescapable cage? You think you are climbing a ladder to freedom, but from the perspective of financial physics, you are actually just adding more weight to a wheel that was already spinning too fast for you to keep up with. In the professional world, we are conditioned to believe that more money always equals more freedom, but this is the fundamental lie that keeps the system running. We have been trained to celebrate the top-line growth of our salaries without ever auditing the bottom line of our freedom. You see the extra digits in your bank account, but you are blind to the massive drain on your time, your health, and your mental sovereignty. This is what we call the scale trap of the soul. In any other context, if you were offered a deal where you received 10% more of something but had to give away 50% more of your most precious resource to get it, you would call it a scam. You would walk away from the table. But because this scam is wrapped in a fancy title and delivered with a handshake from a person in a suit, you call it success. You are standing on the edge of a financial cliff, looking at the beautiful view, completely unaware that the ground beneath your feet is already crumbling. You are not moving up, You are just being repositioned into a more efficient part of the machine where your labor can be extracted at a higher intensity for a lower real price. The dopamine from that steakhouse dinner is a distraction, a temporary chemical veil designed to keep you from noticing that the door to the lab has just been double-bolted from the outside. To understand why this is happening, we have to look at your life through the cold, unfeeling lens of a corporation. In the business world, there is a fundamental rule that every CEO knows, but every employee forgets. Revenue is vanity, but margin is sanity. If a tech startup manages to double its total users, but in the process it triples its server costs, doubles its marketing spend, and hires 4 times the headcount, that company isn't growing in any meaningful way. It is actually accelerating toward bankruptcy. Looking at a business based solely on its revenue without auditing its expenses is exactly how massive companies go into a death spiral. Yet when it comes to our own careers, we operate with a level of financial illiteracy that would get a junior accountant fired on their first day. We treat our gross salary as if it were pure profit, completely ignoring the massive operational costs required to generate that income. Think about a local bakery as an example. If that bakery sells $1 million worth of bread in a year, you might think the owner is rich. But if you look at the forensic data and realize they spent $900,000 on premium organic flour, sky-high rent for a trendy location, and expensive labor, that bakery is actually on life support. The owner isn't making $1 million, they are struggling to keep a thin margin of 10%. Now, apply this same corporate audit to your new promotion. You see the $15,000 increase in your revenue, the salary, but you are totally blind to the cost of goods sold. And in this specific economic experiment, the good being sold is you. It is your life energy, your metabolic health, and your cognitive bandwidth. When you accept a promotion, you aren't just getting more money, you are expanding the operations of You Inc. You are essentially telling the market that you are ready to scale up, but just like a failing business, you are scaling without efficiency. You are increasing your output at the cost of your internal infrastructure. The system is designed to reward this lack of forensic thinking. It wants you to focus on the gross because if you ever looked at your net, you would realize you are running a failing enterprise. A smart business owner doesn't just try to increase revenue at any cost. They try to protect the margin, the gap between what comes in and what goes out. By taking this promotion without auditing the hidden costs, you have effectively lowered your profit margin while doubling your liabilities. You are now a high-revenue, low-margin business, which is the most fragile position any entity can be in. You are processing more cash through your bank account than ever before, but you are keeping less of your soul in the process. You are becoming a zombie corporation, looking successful on the outside while being hollowed out by expenses on the inside. Now that we have established the corporate logic, let's perform a brutal forensic audit of what this promotion actually costs you. We need to look at the shadow taxes that are about to bleed your new paycheck dry. First, let's talk about the most obvious thief, the government. As your salary jumps, you aren't just paying more tax. You are often pushed into a higher tax bracket where every extra dollar you earned is taxed at a much steeper rate. The $15,000 you were promised is instantly shaved down by the taxman before it even hits your bank account. But that is just the beginning. Now comes the status tax. You are a senior manager now, which means you can no longer show up to the office in your comfortable, slightly worn-out clothes. You have a reputation to maintain. You find yourself spending thousands on premium business attire, high-end dry cleaning, and perhaps even a more expensive car because you feel the unspoken pressure to fit into the executive parking lot. You think these are personal choices, but they are actually operational expenses required to maintain your new position. Then we have the convenience tax. Because your new role demands more of your time and mental energy, you no longer have the capacity to perform basic life maintenance. You start ordering $18 salads for lunch because you were stuck in back-to-back meetings and didn't have time to meal prep. You start paying for premium delivery services, dog walkers, or even a cleaning crew because your weekends are now spent recovering from the work week rather than managing your home. You are essentially paying other people to live your life for you because you are too busy working to pay for it. But the darkest category of all is what we call decompression spending. This is the money you spend to numb the psychological damage the job inflicts on you. It is the expensive cocktails on a Friday night to forget the passive-aggressive emails from your director. It is the impulsive high-end vacation you book because you feel like you are on the verge of a burnout and desperately need to escape. It is the retail therapy, where you buy gadgets or luxury goods you don't need just to feel a fleeting sense of control and reward. These aren't luxuries, they are survival costs. They are the maintenance and repair expenses of a human machine that is being run at its breaking point. When you add up the taxes, the professional wardrobe, the convenience food, and the cost of numbing your stress, you realize that the $15,000 raise is being siphoned off by a dozen different vampires. By the time the audit is finished, the actual profit left over from your promotion is often zero, or, in many cases, it's a negative number. You are working harder to pay for the costs that the job itself created. In the world of the exit lab, we don't believe in the dollar as the ultimate currency. We believe in the hour. Money can be printed, but your time is a finite, depreciating asset that can never be recovered. To truly understand the promotion trap, we have to perform a currency conversion, converting your bank balance into your life balance. Wage, by definition, is a function of money divided by time. But the system relies on you drastically overestimating the money and even more drastically underestimating the time. When you were a happy analyst, your contract said 40 hours, and you likely worked close to that. You had a life. You had a margin of freedom. But as a senior manager, the concept of a 40-hour week becomes a nostalgic myth. We have to account for what we call shadow work. This is the labor the system extracts from you for free. It is the hour you spend at 6:30 a.m. grooming yourself into the corporate image. It is the commute where your brain is already processing the day's crises. It is the lunch hour where you are held captive at your desk, unable to nap, play with your kids, or breathe fresh air. But even worse is the mental occupation. Through this promotion, your employer didn't just buy your physical presence for 50 hours, they bought your mental sovereignty for all 168 hours of the week. You are checking Slack messages at your daughter's birthday party. You are rehearsing the board meeting while you are in the shower. Your brain is vibrating with work-related cortisol at 11 p.m. on a Sunday. This is all unpaid labor. When we run the forensic numbers on a typical worker like our friend the mouse in this experiment, the results are sickening. Before the promotion, as an analyst, after subtracting taxes and basic work costs, the mouse was making a real hourly wage of about $24. That was his net life margin. But after the promotion, even with the $15,000 raise, his costs skyrocketed and his true hours exploded. When you take his whittled-down net income and divide it by the nearly 3,000 hours a year he now dedicates to the corporation, his real hourly wage evaporates. Mathematically, he went from making $24 an hour to making less than $9 an hour. He didn't move up the ladder, he fell down a flight of stairs. He is now being paid less than the teenager flipping burgers down the street, who at least leaves his stress at the fry station and walks home to a life that he actually owns. This mouse is selling his most precious years of his life at a 60% discount, all for the privilege of having a fancy title printed on a piece of plastic. He is trading his soul for pennies, and the tragedy is that he's still telling himself he's winning. So, what is the solution? After the forensic audit is complete and the reality of the promotion trap is laid bare, you might feel like the only option is to quit your job tomorrow and disappear into the woods. But at the Exit Lab, we are realists. We know you have bills, we know you have responsibilities, and we know you live in a world that runs on currency. The answer isn't to stop working. The answer is to stop being a passive subject in a failed experiment and start becoming the engineer of your own freedom. You have to stop chasing titles and start ruthlessly chasing margin. In this new paradigm, success is no longer defined by the height of your salary, but by the efficiency of your life. Your new metric for victory is not how much you make, but how much of your life you actually own at the end of every day. The first step in this exit strategy is a psychological shift. You must start treating your labor like a business. A smart business owner doesn't just try to increase revenue, they try to increase the gap between income and expenses. If you are making $100,000 a year but spending 95,080 hours a week to generate it, you are a failing, fragile enterprise. You are an Enron waiting to collapse. But if you make $50,000, spend only $20,000, and work 30 hours a week, you are a highly profitable, robust, and sovereign entity. You are winning. To break the equation of the promotion trap, you must learn to negotiate for time instead of just money. Can you trade that next $10,000 raise for the right to work remotely 3 days a week? By doing so, you eliminate the commute, the status tax of clothing, and the convenience tax of expensive lunches. You essentially give yourself a massive raise without the company paying you a single extra dime. Every work-related expense you cut, every vampire cost you eliminate, is $1 of pure freedom added back to your life. The ultimate goal is to build a gap so wide that the job becomes a choice rather than a cage. We want you to sit down this weekend, not when you are exhausted on Friday, but when you are fresh and clear-headed on Sunday, and run these numbers for yourself. Calculate your real hourly wage. Write that number on a sticky note and put it on your credit card. The next time you go to buy something to reward yourself for a hard week, look at that number and ask, am I willing to trade 5 hours of my life for this plastic junk? That friction will save you more money than any budgeting app ever could. We are living in an era where time has become the ultimate currency. The rich are buying time. The poor are selling it at a massive discount. Do not sell your life at a discount. Audit your life, optimize your margin, and start building the blueprint for your exit. Because the only promotion that actually matters is the one where you promote yourself to the position of owner of your own time. This is the Exit Lab. We don't just find the trap, we build the door.